He's an interesting story. Kenny had a little checkered drag racing career starting back in the early 60s. He drove a number of different funny cars, dragsters, drove a lot of things. Then he decided to go into business and opened a chain of restaurants, was very successful, decided to come back to drag racing, and what did he debut but the Chelsea King and then the Budweiser King cars, and has been ultimately successful. He is a professional racer, as is the Fabergé Super Brute car of Al Segrini. The staging procedure is now underway, centering their wheels on the starting line of 1,320 feet of high-traction asphalt. And a bit of a lead for Al Segrini, and a lot of lead for Al Segrini. A huge fire for Kenny Bernstein. And there goes the supercharger bouncing off the car as Kenny Bernstein exploded it in the lights. As our cameras follow him to a stop, both parachutes out, Bernstein exploding the engine. It's a 597 win for Al Segrini. The NHRA Safety Safari crew headed to the scene, and Bernstein sitting patiently in the car. Not an oil fire per se, it looked just like a supercharger explosion. And Bernstein, I am certain, is very upset with himself as the fire crew in their protective clothing come and attempt to raise the body. You can see right on the scene they carry all sorts of fire extinguishing compounds. Primarily the first thing that hits it is water, just to cool everything down. The drivers are utilizing all sorts of fire safety equipment and, of course, onboard fire extinguishing systems. But Kenny Bernstein coming out of the car, walking away from it. As you can see, Kenny Bernstein taking off his gloves, not real happy with things at the moment. And the overflow crowd here giving a round of applause to Bernstein, but that's not the way anybody wants to go out of competition. As we get a chance to look at it again, follow it closely, and you can see the heat waves coming up off the car, indicating, of course, tremendous amounts of horsepower out of these engines. Segrini at this point has about a 3-car length lead. Bernstein is trying to catch him. Things starting to go wrong with Bernstein at about this point. The motor starting to oil ever so slightly as things starting to come out of it. And there it explodes into a ball of fire. And that's the supercharger explosion. You see the supercharger coming up out of the flames right in front of the windshield. Now bear in mind, there's a driver sitting inside that car. He's trying to look through the flames, trying to figure out, what do I do next? All he is concerned with at this point is keeping that car straight, making sure that it does not get into the opponent's lane and does not go off the racetrack. After that bit of excitement, what more can we ask for? Who knows, as we continue in the first round of Funny Car Eliminator here at the inaugural NorthStar Nationals at Brainerd International Raceway in Brainerd, Minnesota. We'll be right back. NorthStar Nationals at Brainerd International Raceway. We've just seen the excitement of a supercharger explosion in Funny Car Eliminator as the Budweiser King of Kenny Bernstein out of competition in the first round. Carl Olson has had a chance to catch up with him down by the finish line, and Carl is with Kenny at this moment.
Thanks, Dave. Kenny, from our vantage point, it looked like you were about 3/4 of the way down the track, and suddenly there was just a violent explosion. Do you have any idea what happened?
Well, not exactly what caused the explosion at this time, Carl, but obviously the supercharger, which is on top of the engine that forces the air and the fuel into the motor, just exploded, and it came off the car, and then a little bit of a fire, a flash fire for a second or two. The cause, obviously, in most cases, is an intake valve hung open for a period of time instead of charge off in the intake manifold, and makes it like a bomb.
Yeah, it certainly looked like a bomb from here, and of course we did notice that you got the parachute right out and got on the brakes real hard, got the car stopped without any problems. Do you have any difficulty there at all?
Well, no, at one point you can't see when the fire's on you and the oil's in your face, but your instincts, and as much as we drive these cars, as we know to automatically go for the parachute immediately. Then I went from there to the brake, which has the safety device of a fire extinguisher built into the brake that I can activate myself, which I activated, and it put the fire out immediately, and then it's just a matter of stopping. Then it's just almost routine.
Well, Kenny, you've been running exceptionally well in the last few weeks, and I know you're very disappointed going out in the first round, especially this way. Good luck in the future.
And there's no problem. They'll be back. The Budweiser King will be there.
Thank you, Kenny. Back to you, Dave.
Thank you very much, Carl, and we caught right up with it as Kenny Bernstein completed his description of what went on. You hear the sound of the nitro-burning engines of our next pair of cars ready to go. The body coming down on the car in the near lane is the reigning Winston World Champion for the past 3 consecutive years, and that is Raymond Beadle. From Dallas, Texas, this is the famed Blue Max. Beetle qualifying in the number 7 spot at 6.03 seconds, and he has had tremendous problems thus far at this event. Alongside of him, from Stanton, California, he calls himself the Orange Baron. This is Gary Bergen. Bergen has won several national events and been runner-up with a couple. He was a U.S. Nationals champion. Back in 1976, he was runner-up in 1981 at 2 events, the Golden Gate Nationals and the Winston World Finals, and a couple of other events stacked in between. Marty Reid, you were back in the pits a little bit earlier today, and we're talking to Raymond Beadle, and he's not been happy at all.
No, they've made several changes on the motor. They wanted to try and get some more power. They're not getting any top-end speed. Usually, Beadle is thundering in the 240s, high 240 range. He's been having trouble getting it 240 even. So they made a few changes in the motor, and we're going to see if it works.
The Ford EXP body on the Blue Max allows it to cut through the air at speeds upwards of 250 miles an hour. And sitting encased inside that car, it's almost a claustrophobic feeling for these drivers, but after you do it long enough, they become very, very accustomed to it. In other forms of motorsports, the drivers have come around and sat in the funny cars, and they lowered the body down on them, and they've got those breather masks on them, and these drivers of champ cars, of sprint cars, they say, I wouldn't sit behind that motor for anything in the world. But Gary Bergen, for Raymond Beadle, it's just like putting on your shoes every morning.
Well, all you can see is the motor.
And a little bit of plexiglass you look through, and a great start, and a lot of smoke out of Gary Bergen, but boy, is Bergen pulling an upset here, putting down to defeat the Blue Max. Gary Bergen notches a 597 at 246.57 miles an hour. And Gary Bergen takes the measure of a Raymond Beadle 6.05, and you saw how far behind Raymond Beadle was. As Bergen coasts to a stop at the end of the track, here in tire-smoking splendor is the Orange Baron of Gary Bergen.
This is the first time in 3 races against Beadle, a national event competition, that he's got the better edge.
And he's got a big edge here. Look how many car lengths separate him. Gary Bergen at 597, 236 miles an hour, defeats Raymond Beadle, and a motor starting to go away in Beadle's car as he approaches the finish line. The engine's coming to life in our next pair. This is Little John Lombardo. Not a household name in championship drag racing outside of Southern California, but the folks back in LA have learned to fear Little John Lombardo and to respect him because he is one of the premier racers of Southern California. The competition is the man that has been dominant throughout 1982, and this is Frank Hawley at the wheel of the famed Chi-Town Hustler.
He won the Gator Nationals beating Tim Gross, the Spring Nationals beating Al Sagrini, and then came back just this past week and won the popular hot rodding championships. So he has been running pretty consistently all year long. He was also runner-up at the Southern Nationals to Raymond Beadle. And believe it or not, you know, he holds the distinction of losing the quickest side-by-side funny car race to Raymond Beadle. That was back at the 82 Winter Nationals, and it was on a hole shot. He actually ran a quick relapse time, but he lost the race because he was late off the starting line, a 597 to a 596. And he really doesn't like to talk about that too much.
Not too much. Violent burnouts by both drivers, indicating tremendous traction available. Those huge 18-inch wide slicks just clawing at the pavement that has now become practically a rubber surface. So it is rubber to rubber as Little John Lombardo and Frank Hawley complete their burnouts. Hawley, a former pro comp racer. He used to drive alcohol funny cars. He drove alcohol altereds. He drove practically everything. This season he moved into the Chi-Town Hustler, and it has been a success for him. Moving into those light beams that indicate the starting line. Little John Lombardo and Frank Hawley. We're in round number 1 of the NorthStar Nationals Funny Car Eliminator. A great start and tremendous horsepower for Little John Lombardo. He smokes the tires. Oh, ladies and gentlemen, you've just seen low elapsed time of the meet for funny cars, and what a shot. 5.89 seconds for Frank Hawley at 243 miles an hour. A losing, tire-smoking 6:16 for little John Lombardo as he goes out of competition. We watch again in replay slow motion. You see right there, the clutch comes in, the horsepower comes in, and John Lombardo goes out.
Yeah, smoking the tires just won't do it in this race because that right lane seems to be hooking up very well, and Frank Hawley powers on past, and look at the distance as he runs a 5:89, the quickest funny car so far this week.
Tom Anderson in Jim Ouimet's car. You see the eyes, and it gives you an indication of the concentration. He's thinking about, what can I do to get my car down that racetrack just a little bit quicker than anybody else? He'll be in that left-hand lane. He just saw little John Lombardo go up in smoke. Jim Ouimet's entry out of Macedon, New York. The body coming down on the car. Tom Anderson, a journeyman race driver, one of true professional skill, has driven a number of cars throughout his long and checkered career. The Chief Auto Parts 711 special of Billy Meyer.
Now, Billy, so far, this is an interesting story. Billy Meyer has high speed at the meet so far at 250 miles an hour, but he hasn't really been able to match it after making that on the first qualifying pass. And he told me during the pits this morning that his mind just isn't in this race. His wife, Debbie, is pregnant. She's due anytime this week, and he's having a hard time getting mentally prepared for this race, and mental preparation is at least 50%, and some drivers think as much as 80%.
Yes, sir. The need for the concentration is very great in this sport because you have to really devote your entire mental processes to getting your car and yourself prepared for the run. For Billy Meyer, he has been over 250 miles an hour, probably more times than any funny car racer, well over 254. And with that 711 Chief Auto Parts special, I'm sure his wife Debbie back home in Waco, Texas, is wishing him the very best.
Well, this is an important round for him because Frank Hawley leads him by 86 points, and he's already into the semifinals, so Meyer has to win to keep pace. In fact, the winner of this race meets Frank Hawley.
For Tom Anderson, Jim Ouimet, the latest in a series of top-quality rides. For a race driver, both of these men are 27 years old. Billy Meyer started his career in a funny car back at the age of 16, has never driven anything but a nitro-burning funny car. Seconds away and unprevented hole shot. Disregard who you saw cross the finish line first. It just doesn't matter because the win was decided at the starting line with a big red light for Tom Anderson, and a tough break for the Anderson Ouimet crew. An outstanding 6.08 seconds, going to no avail at 240 miles an hour. As we watch again, you can see Tom Anderson leave way ahead of Billy Meyer. There's the red light. It's lost right there. They could have shut everything off, coasted through the quarter mile, and Billy Meyer would still have been the winner.
Notice the time, though, 6:18 and only 216 miles an hour. During a break here, I'm going to have to go back and talk to Billy, see if he eased up at the top end to try and save the motor, or if he really had that much or doesn't have that much motor.
We'll be back at the NorthStar Nationals at Brainerd International Raceway in just a moment. The NorthStar Nationals at Brainerd International Raceway. The first round of funny car action is completed, and at the finish line, Carl Olson has with us the man that set low elapsed time for funny cars, Frank Hawley. Carl?
Thank you, Dave. Frank, the Chi-Town Hustler is known as one of the most consistent cars in the sport of drag racing, and a lot of your world championship points have been earned through consistency. Suddenly, here you are with low elapsed time of the meet up to this point at 5.89, and I've got to tell you, that was the cleanest car coming through the shutoff area of all of them. It looks like you might have found a real combination. Is that correct?
Well, what happened was we hurt our motor that we'd been running most of the summer on Friday in qualifying, and we had to change motors, and we took a 3-year-old motor out of the truck and put it in the car, and it seems to be working very well. I mean, at the first of the year, we started running really quick at Pomona, and we didn't win the race, and, you know, we run okay at Gainesville. It fell off for most of the summer, and it appears that we've got it back now.
Well, it's certainly a pleasure to have you on the World Championship circuit this year, and we look forward to seeing a lot more of you as the race goes on.
Well, thank you very much, Carl, and we're going to try our best to win it.
Back to you, Dave.
Thank you, Carl. I guess museum pieces like us have a place somewhere in this sport of drag racing. Taking a motor 3 years old out of the trailer and putting it in and running a 589. That is the low ET thus far. Frank Hawley driving the famed Chi-Town Hustler. He is moving into the semifinals, and every race he wins, he continues to mount up points in that Winston World Championship Series. Sitting patiently waiting, not only this tremendous throng of spectators that has jammed into Brainerd International Raceway, but our pro stock racers, and what a show we have for you here. There's campers scattered. I'll tell you, Marty, you've been wandering around out there, and it is just unbelievable. There are campers some 6,000 to 8,000 strong.